or 843-1888. 724-774-1888. It's Teleform with Eddie Crow.
Having a wonderful conversation. Jeremy Angus is my guest. You're the principal. You're the nicest principal I ever met in my life. The school is Class Academy, and it's in Baden, and you're the principal.
Yeah.
If I get called to your office, I'm going to be like, oh, hi, how you doing? That's not the way it's supposed to be. How is education different than it was when you were going through, and certainly the way it was when I was going through?
Absolutely. Where it is really different is, now there's, I remember when I was in school, I was able to form relationships. I was able, I didn't have such a pressure on.
I had one or two teachers, you were kind of buddies with them. They'd talk to you like a person, maybe out in the hallway.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. You always had a safe landing zone,
Yeah.
And now a lot of times education's got to this, we have to get these tests done, have to get these scores in, have to get this done. We lost a lot of touch of learning those whole other level of skills, whether it's maturity or how to use a hammer. I mean, we've lost a lot of that in our life when it comes to education. And there's a lot of kids that still need that and value that.
Let me ask you this as an educator. How beneficial would we be as a country if we brought back what used to be called the industrial arts or the vocational arts?
It should be there 100% and should be a focus. Not every kid is college material. And to be quite frank, you hear more and more about every kid who went to college, got a certain degree, and that's not even the industry they're working until today. There's a lot
You're looking at me when you said that.
Because you do. There's a life skill. There's a relationship factor. There's just becoming a young adult or, a mature, hardworking individual. And that doesn't come from sitting in a college auditorium with 400 people. That comes from learning things with your hands, with real human connections.
Where did you go to school?
I went to Ambridge, was where I graduated from, and then I was a Duquesne student.
You Duquesne?
Yeah.
How big a jump was it? Because I think of Duquesne as it's a much bigger school than Ambridge High School, but it's not a Big Ten school where your freshman social class has 460, 70 people. How big of an adjustment was it for you to go from not rural, but a relatively insular place to not?
What was probably the biggest adjustment was going to an area that was actually lacked some of the diversity that I found in the Ambridge school district for myself growing up there. With having different communities and different students from all different walks in life and cultures and socioeconomic areas, going to Duquesne, you became a little bit of a different bubble. And it was highly focused on certain academics and you had certain populations of students. And I didn't care for it as much because, I loved
not as diverse.
100%. It wasn't, you couldn't find your crowd really as much. I did, and I had a great time there.
Yeah.
But, that initial, if you think that first month or month two in, it was a whole different world for you. But I would never give up what I learned at a place like Ambridge, where I did learn real world skills and had those teachers that were mentors and learned some real life things and still learned how to use a hammer along the way.
Okay. The skills that you learned when you were going to school at Ambridge that prepared you.
Yeah.
Are those skills still available universally in public education?
Not like they were when I was in school. And I think they're there if a student has a supportive home life and has a lot of supportive mentors along the way.
If the kid has enough time to develop an interest in something other than surviving?
100%. When you're in a survival mode, which for me in Class Academy, most of our kids are, when you're in survival mode, that's it. How do I wake up this morning and how do I go to bed and stay in one piece and keep life together?
Right.
That's my goal today. I'm not really thinking what's happening next week, let alone in a few years in my future. I need to make it today.
You didn't come up that way. Was that a shock when you saw kids that way?
You know what? It was a shock to see sometimes. I remember walking into this position, and the first time I went to homes, went to certain homes. I grew up in a great home life. I had fantastic parents.
Right.
I always had clean clothes and food on the table. The biggest shock to me, one of our colleagues, Joy Metzler, who's our school counselor, absolutely fantastic. She went with me on my first home visit, and I'm usually in a suit and a tie. And,
what causes a home visit to happen?
Maybe if a student's just refusing to come to school or not interested, or there's been a change in them and we haven't seen them.
Right.
You
go check up.
We're going to go check up on
Yeah.
them. We're going to go to where they are, and we also want to see that environment. What's causing that?
Right.
Is it home or is it us? And when we went, I'll never forget, before we got out of the car, her first thing was, she said, take off your jacket and take off your tie. And I said, why? And she said, there's a good chance there's bed bugs in this house. And I said, I didn't even think of that, and we walked in the house and I couldn't imagine someone was living in that home.
Right.
That was a culture shock to me for a moment because
That was something you had literally never seen.
Never seen. Never saw that a kid's bedroom could be inside of that. Now, almost 10 years later of doing this position, nothing really surprises me anymore.
You've become just scarred by all of it.
You have, but it says that's how they're living. And those kids have no choice. They didn't choose that lifestyle. It chose them. They have to deal with that.
How often do those kids coming from that environment find Class Academy an oasis in the storm?
More often than not is the best way to say it. Kids come to us a lot. A lot of times we're looked at as a temporary placement because the goal would be a kid to come to us, get back on track, and then move on to something else as well too as a school district.
Okay.
The school district doesn't want to just send a student out. They would like them to, maybe if they come in a middle school year, to come back for their high school, to have more opportunities or that social skills. They would like that. Quite often kids don't want to leave.
Once they get settled in, they're like, you know what, this is way better than where I was. Why would I want to go back to that? Yeah. What happens then with the school district?
As long as the school district is okay with it and the family is, a kid can typically stay with us and they'll graduate from us just like they would at their home school. The coolest part is, though, they also get a home school district diploma as well. So,
really?
Yeah, if a kid's coming to us from Beaver Falls or, Freedom School District, they're going to come to us. And, I always tell the students, you could wipe me off the face of the earth if you want and pretend Class Academy didn't exist in your life because you'll still get that home diploma. So it still holds a little more weight and cloud when it comes to the collegiate level as well, too, or for those trades or VOTEX, whatever it looks like, so that they have that certificate from a home school district. But, it gives them that opportunity because they worked hard for it, just in a different place.
How many kids attend Class Academy?
We're looking at about 70 or 80 is what our enrollment is.
And it's fourth grade through
12th grade.
4 through 12.
Yeah.
Okay. Where do most of the kids come from?
So most of our students are going to come here from Beaver County. That's where the vast majority come from.
The building's in Baden. That makes sense.
So you look from us, really anywhere an hour and a half bus ride would be our maximum kind of ratio around us.
And at that point, you're getting the kids so early in the morning to get them back. It ain't going to be helpful. A 3-hour commute either way.
Right. We wouldn't recommend it. That kid's going to step off the bus pretty angry. I would step off the bus pretty angry.
I'm either groggy or angry.
Yes.
Yeah. 1230 WBVP, 1460 WNBA, 99.3 FM presented by St. Barnabas, and 95.7 FM. Jeremy Angus is my guest. He is the president of Class Academy, which is right down the road here in Baden, PA. If you didn't end up as a principal, where were you headed?
I was headed either for myself before, either in the political direction or the marketing direction.
All right, I'm going to be a smart aleck.
Neither of those.
I'm going to be a smart aleck. What's the difference?
That's very true. It's very true.
There was a side of you really considered going into politics?
Yeah, you know what? It was a lot of mentors in my life growing up. That was something that when I grew up in Ambridge, and that started back when I was in Ambridge, that I had a lot of mentors who were great mentors for me, who kind of really pushed me in that direction and said that would be a great place for me to kind of build my career and my personal future. And I followed a lot of that. And, it's one thing I will never regret doing. It taught me so many skills that I would never think I'd be using today. But it was a great opportunity.
As a principal, you have to have political skills to navigate, and so because you got people coming at you from all sides. You got the kids, you got the parents, you got the teachers for sure, and the teachers are the worst when they're mad because they use big words on you.
They do,
and there is a political side to that, but you say you're glad you didn't take that route. Because of the enjoyment and the love you have for what you do, or because of the cesspool that you'd currently be waiting in if that route had been chosen?
You could probably take both of those as a yes, but more so, with the kids. When I talk about, I never expect to be working with kids, but I look at a change you can make at a legislative
level.
Well,
that's why I ask, because most people that I know that went into teaching, that was something they were going to do that from the time they were a kid.
Yeah.
I want to be a teacher.
Yep.
Okay. And for you to end up on that route, that had to be a pretty good leap of faith, man.
You know what it was? And a lot of it came with a lot of insecurities on myself, right? I don't know those big words those teachers use. I still don't know that I know all of them all the time.
That was my motivation to not get in trouble. I didn't want to be scolded and not understand it.
Right. So it's really, when you finally get, especially with our students, I don't know that I'd feel the same way if I was working in a public school environment,
right.
But working with our group, it's just real world. It's for our kids, it's teaching them manners, how to say thank you, how to clean your clothes.
It's the stuff that, and I'm just going to be blunt, it's the stuff that you got taught socially growing up.
Absolutely.
And you recognize, okay, there are people that are going to go into the world that were never taught that. I can make that different.
Right. When we talk about, right, if we all work a job, we want it to not necessarily always feel like work. And
Right.
that's
Oh,
our
sure.
goal. And it hasn't felt like work because you really, sometimes it's hard to see if you're changing a life, but you see one smile or you get one hug from that kid after a bad day. And that's the paycheck you're looking for every day.
How often does it happen to kids? Because you've been doing this a little bit now. Do you occasionally have kids come back after they're out and take you aside and say, hey, man, you did good with me. I would have ended up way worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do. And a lot of times it's the ones you don't expect, who show up at the front door.
Now, be honest, as an educator, there's some kids that graduate that you think, oh, my God, I'm glad he's gone. It's true.
It is.
It is.
And we always say those are the ones that show up every day, too.
Yeah.
But they're also the ones that will come back and thank you years later. And you do. You see, I'd even talked the other day, just as recent as this week, a former student who I hadn't talked to in a few years. His father had just passed away, and it was a pretty big, tough situation. He's by himself with his dad, and I wouldn't think I was going to hear from this kid.
Right.
Cell phone rings from a random number, and it's him. And he said, "How do you plan a funeral?"
Still looking for an education.
25 years old, and he's still calling me to say, "How do you do this?" Which is pretty cool to see.
Even in a dark time, that's got to make you feel like I'm thought of by that kid as somebody that can help that kid now, even though I'm not his teacher or principal anymore.
It does. It says that, every high five or every conversation or every time he cried or he was angry that my staff or myself worked with him and didn't give up on him,
right?
That we did something. And you may not always see that. And that's one thing for our staff. We tell them all the time. You may not see it today, tomorrow, or next year, but at some point you'll realize that you impact kids more than you think.
Name one attribute that a teacher at your school has to have that maybe they don't have to have if they were at a quote unquote regular public school. What's the difference if you guys, because that's where most of your teachers, I'm guessing, are coming from.
Yep.
Okay. What's the one thing you tell them? Hey, this part's different.
So a little bit of a thick skin, and
you don't already have to have a thick skin in teaching.
You do. Take it to the next step. Be a little street smart too,
gotcha.
and being able to understand our students because, we haven't, to be honest, we've hired public school teachers who have, said, hey, we're going to make the change over to Class Academy. And a lot of times it's a slap in the face a little bit for you because reality is right there that now you have that entire population that you used to have the one or two kids in your classroom that you sent out to the principal's office.
These are all those kids.
They're just all together now. So it's one party with them.
So they've formed their own mob.
Yep.
And you better be able to deal with it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How thick skin do you have to get? Have you ever, and be honest, please, have you ever had a teacher after one day come by and say, you know what, this just no?
Absolutely, we have.
We
absolutely have. And we've helped them come to that decision too at times. There's been plenty of times where it's like, how did today go?
Yeah. Let's talk about today. How did you feel?
And for us, we understand that. We try to be as, upfront and honest in an interview process. But when you talk about challenges of hiring teachers,
right,
until you're in a day in the life of, putting 20,000 steps on, having, getting kids a toothbrush or making phone calls home or.
Yeah, and that's why I asked that, because the teachers at Class Academy aren't just teaching, here's what today's section is in the book.
Right.
You got a whole bunch of life skills that get thrown into that, or you get drawn into having to deal with that.
And you have to be okay with, you may have went home and planned an entire lesson for the day.
Right.
And that one kid could have shown up who had a terrible evening at home.
Yeah.
You may never get to that lesson because your whole day is just regrouping and working through those feelings and emotions that the whole class is drug in now. And you may have to be okay with not getting to that today. You did teach them something. It wasn't what you planned, but you did do that.
Is that tough for some teachers? Because, there's some teachers, the lesson plan is the lesson plan.
Absolutely.
If you teach at Class Academy, I would imagine you've got to be able to audible a lot.
You always have that lesson plan, but there's always a few alternatives in your back pocket as well, ready to go.
Yeah.
So.
It sounds like an amazing place that honestly I wish would have existed long before it started existing.
We hear it a lot that a lot of parents come to us and say, where were you a few years ago?
Right.
I wish my kid was here then. And we always tell them, it's easy for us to say that, we wish we were there for your child at that point. But, in a lot of times in maybe that child's life or that parent's life, they wouldn't be ready for our service. But, once you hit to that certain breaking point or things are just happening with that student ongoing, or all those negative calls, sometimes that's where you say, okay, I'm done. I need the help and support. And that's when you're most willing to get it. You can't always get it until you're ready.
No, that's exactly correct. Is that part of why other school districts are as willing as they are to work with you? It's like, okay, you guys, you want to deal with this? You deal with him. God bless you. Good luck.
And, and some of it, I think, comes out of exhaustion on the districts. Some districts as well, truly do invest in the child. On the flip side as well, the hardest part is a lot of times the districts that need us most are also the ones who, our service is relatively inexpensive, but at the same time, they're dealing with teacher cuts, shortages, this. Sending a kid out to get some additional support is a huge burden on the district as well.
Especially, I'm trying to, if I'm running the district and I've got no money, and there are districts like that, I can't worry about sending a kid out of the district and costing money. I don't have money for the kids that would be here to take advantage of it.
100%. And that's where I look at, those superintendents who have to deal or manage that. That's a challenge, right? Because you want the best for the child, but at the same time, you have hundreds of other students to worry about as well, too, not just that one child.
One more time, let people, it's on Route 65.
We are.
I see it every day. It's in Baden. It's Class Academy. For people that are interested in this, and this is an absolute brilliant thing for a whole lot of people that regular education, it ain't going to work for them.
Right.
In part because often, like you said, they're not kids like I was going to class and living a carefree life. They got grown-up issues. It's got to be different.
They do.
On Route 65 in Baden, how do they get in touch with the principal?
Absolutely. So you can visit us on classacademyvarks.org. So.
I'm getting an art.
You're getting that Aardvark T-shirt. It's coming. And then 724-869-2222 is our phone number.
Well, Jeremy, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Anything that you guys need, how can you not root for the Aardvarks on top of it? That's a stroke of genius. The school is Class Academy. It's in Baden. Jeremy Angus is the principal. It's Teleforum on Beaver County Radio.
As a veteran, you get a lot of advice. But wisdom's harder to come by. A lot of people imagine themselves in our shoes without understanding the weight on our shoulders. The truth is, few can understand the pressure of finding your own way after serving in the military. But few isn't none. You've got support. You can't control the chaos, but you can chart your way through it. Steady yourself. Take a breath. You're not alone.